For my fascination with religious studies as a literary genre, I'm inspired by Persian miniatures, Buddhist concept painting, Chinese landscape painting, and AI art, because I believe that these art forms share a purpose of attempting to illustrate the spiritual world in their own unique ways. I believe it's possible to find one's own unique way of understanding and expressing oneself through reconciling several different cultural values. In this way, I'm trying to develop a new iconographical system in my work. I try to focus on conventions I've learned in the program, such as plane separation, arranging elements, such as shapes and figures to form more intriguing compositions, using simultaneous color contrast, simultaneous perspective, and treating different parts of the painting as color zones. I try to think about these conventions as I work.
Okay.
You got a title for this one?
Yeah, that's I can pull this up.
Oh man, if you can't find it, it's okay. I don't want to.
Yeah, that's just crucifixion painting, and then this is it's a guardian angels agonizing over like hell or something, and then the one there is just I haven't really come up with a good title for that.
How long did it take you to make each painting?
Oh, I don't know. I've just been working in this setting like every day, and then I guess it probably would usually takes like a couple of weeks or maybe depending on what I'm doing. I've been kind of busy lately because I've had like some graduate teaching internships in there, classes and stuff.
The level of detail in these is like, oh, damn. What your room look like? Seems so organized. Like, sheesh.
I've almost become like more interested in the backgrounds that you're painting now. They're so, there's like so many patterns and like just weird moves that you're making in the land and the sky that like the sort of Bosch-esque things that's happening in the foreground definitely brings like the level of goof to the painting, but I mean the backgrounds are just so beautiful now. I kind of just want to see that.
Yeah, this type of painting, I mean, so much to look at and appreciate to where maybe that becomes a problem.
Too much of a good thing.
Too much of a good thing, yeah. But I don't know. I think I'm just so impressed with this because it's so far from my reality and world and how I paint that.
In the intricacy.
Yeah, I was just like, yeah, I'm pretty impressed with that patience, the level of detail, how small your fucking liner brush probably is to get some of these. I started to think about do your hands crown. You might be a good barber if you got steady hands right there. Dang. So much detail.
I'm interested in what Grant said about the backgrounds. I wonder what it would look like if all of the overtly, dramatic subject matter was removed and only the subsidiary elements remained. I don't mean, it's something just to try out and see what that is, what that would be. I don't mean you would have to abandon everything you're doing. Just like the paintings always depend on this cast of intentionally over dramatized figures. Demons, angels, Jesus, and so on. And so, in the patterning, in the way that the landscapes are built up with patterning, I wonder if there's not some other narrative lurking under all the drama. And as your paintings have matured over the last couple of years, I mean, in the best of them for me, there's this kind of integration of these really intricate patterns of light. The sky, the trees, the whole thing. And I sometimes feel like all the cobras and the fucking dogs and Jesus and everything is like in the way of really seeing what's there, and that your sensibility is clearest in these secondary elements.
Yeah, I like the way you did those snakes. I think Jesus needs to get out of here.
Yeah.
We don't need Jesus in his little kingdom. They need like those snakes to be repeated or something.
Exactly.
I don't know. No snakes over there. So,
The Bellini that's in the Frick, Joe, the what was St. Francis? Do you know that painting?
The rabbit with the rabbit in it?
With the rabbit in it. It's St. Francis receiving the stigmata. But it's one of the most beautiful paintings ever. And it's pretty big. It's probably about that tall. You know this painting?
I don't know.
No? And St. Francis is in this huge landscape, and he's just a little guy. And he's just standing there like this.
And there's a little rabbit back here.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a donkey, and all kinds of shit is going on. But it's all part of the landscape, and St. Francis is just part of the landscape. He's not dramatic. He's just standing there like this, with the stigmata. But there's no blood, and you don't even see the subject for the first, couple of minutes you're looking at the painting.
I think you're sticking too much to like your influences and things, that you're inspired by. And we need to see you in this. Like, what would be you in this besides like depicting like the religion stuff and the things that you're interested in? Because with paintings like these, is like the detail is so impressive, but I'll forget about it tomorrow. And I don't know. I think with technique and skill sometimes is like maybe we do begin to take it for granted because I don't know. I feel like the style the way you paint, you can create this type of world more from maybe your own ideas
Rather than pre-existing
like too much religion-based stuff, just like find a way to twist that in your own way, something.
I think
Go ahead, Brian.
normally for me, I do feel that way in Joe's work. Like maybe it's too imbued with too many different references to like Hinduism, Christianity, too many different histories and those symbols that don't really make sense together. But I think for like the snake cross painting, like I think the use of Jesus and the snake cross and then the dogs humping in front of him, like taking away from his big moment. For me, it's like the funniest thing ever, and I think it's like for me, it's the best use of that religious imagery, like, because I think it somehow comments on it, or it makes it ironic, whether or not you intended that or not, like.
So maybe it is him. It is him.
Yeah, and I think the background as well, like the beautiful all the different leaves on the trees and the rainbow ombre thing of going on, all these like crazy patterning. Somehow they actually like amalgamate to a kind of harmony that is then symbolized in the foreground, so with the actual apparition of Jesus and the cross and things that are representational. Like I think that all the abstract elements that I could suss out in this painting somehow harmonize and and generate the representation. And I think that's why I like this painting a lot too.
This is actually my favorite of the paintings for the same reason. Still, I think it would be interesting to see, in terms of the interest in spirituality, if it's not spelled out iconically in the figures, how would it then emerge in the landscape of its own accord? Just a different way of voicing the thing.
I agree with Veronica. The only thing that I feel like it might be missing is like more specificity. Because it almost seems like you pay the same amount of attention to every single thing. And if that's what you want to do, it feels like you're not choosing to do that, it's just what you do.
Yeah, you'll be a good military man. Go to the military. Captain.
There's certain moments like the rainbow, like the rainbow that really, like a rainbow halo that really catch my attention. But then like that's so short lived.
Yeah, that's good.
And then like in the small one on the left, the background, like Vern was saying, was so interesting because it comes out so much compared to everything else. I think if you just find a way to like emphasize the parts that you care more about in the paintings, everything would come together.
Or you can use this painting as like a painting to build other works off. Like you can zoom in to like the ducks in the water and just like scale that up. And there's so many moments like that you can just work from within this painting. Because this painting is like a full story, like a 300-page book or something. Right?
Well, I think paintings also like draw certain audiences to them,
Yeah.
and like I probably more in your camp that like I see them and then but the detail is sort of like, well, it's not what's at stake for me, right? So also I think that this thing that Stephen, you're saying about you're building off maybe something Grant said, but like that also I think that there's the kind of level of aggression of like this sort of like very like this alligator eating these people. There's a kind of like stress involved in how the subject ground the figure ground relationship that I find like that the figures in the landscape sort of is like, okay, maybe I could go there, but the figures in the landscape are sort of like frightening enough to me that I don't really want to go in there. That's not, like I'm not going to go there. But I think that for some people that's really an attractive space. And so I see these as sort of like being that like I think paintings are a kind of calling card. You call certain people to you. And these paintings seem to sort of live in a kind of like subculture, or like they seem to be like I can imagine maybe military people like them, or like young boys,
People
or
in the South Church.
people in the South Church.
Yeah,
Where there's something there, and I think that there's a lot at stake for Joe, But if they didn't have those, scary dogs and stuff, and Jesus, kind of like so big, like a ghost at me, then maybe I would feel like the kind of like comfort of like, because the space is a sort of like, it has a very different affect to it, right? Like the light coming through the trees, there's a kind of breeze to it, there's a rainbow. There are things that are gentle about the paintings, but there's always a strong tension between the sort of tenderness of the touch and all the care, and then also the sort of like force of the repetition, and sort of like the drumbeat of that, the aggression of the figures, the scale of the figures in that space, how much space they take in that space, and maybe sort of how oblivious they are to the areas around them.
Well, to me, there are two other interesting dynamics that can be pushed in various ways. First, the one we were just talking about allowing the subordinate elements more room to breathe, and avoiding using iconic, pre-existing iconic images to give the power to the painting. But you don't have to choose. It's not like an either-or thing. You can try both. You don't have to. It's not, and I think that's really important to realize.
Actually,
that all you have to do is give yourself permission to try something else, and just keep giving yourself these permissions. You've got this way of working down. So, you're not gonna lose that, and so then you just try other stuff and see what that results in. I sometimes feel that another element of, play is that the level of action by the figures is suppressing a desire to explore color and light. Like the color of that against that is really beautiful. That whole sequence of tones that goes up there. I don't need to make an abstract painting, but just to see, you really work on that very hard. But then for me, sometimes this stuff functions like it's noise. And another aspect of these, the last thing, are they funny? I mean, there's something about the mashup of Jesus and Buddha and fucking
that
dogs.
about the church thing, because you look up close, it's like Jesus got on lipstick and eyeliner and crazy. The church was not like that. I think that it's more contemporary.
Fox was talking about the violent thing, like in that painting. The funnier they are, the more you can play around with that. I think when
There's
they're
some
at
little
their
people being boiled in hot
right, when they're at their most earnest and most uniformly detailed, that for me is the least interesting place. When sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's earnest, sometimes it's detailed, sometimes it's the color. Just the more permissions you give yourself, the better off you are.
But I like the humor in it. Like
That's what I'm saying.
Jesus is wearing like Flintstones underwear.
I started to think about it. So I think about it. It's more funny than initial first look at it.
Which I feel
It's
like
more contemporary too.
Is it funny in a way that you really, like, that's meaningful to you? Or is it just kind of like funny and then you walk by?
That's a really great question.
Good
I think that's the issue. I think it's funny and like, oh, okay, all right. And I
Yeah.
walk by versus it holding me and that's like, why is this funny?
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like humor is operating different in Grant's work with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the way humor is operating here, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful that I want it to hold my, funny and I'm like, why I'm questioning why it's funny versus walking by.
It's like, we kind of get it out, it's like a one-liner in a way. It's
Or
it's
a
not-
bad joke. I hate a
Yeah.
bad joke.
Well, I was say that, it's sort of just.
No, it's
more
not
immediate.
bad, but
It's
I'm
an
saying like,
immediacy thing for the read,
It would be read as a bad joke to most people that are religious.
There's something,
Yeah.
there's something horrible about a bad joke.
yeah,
It's
especially.
worse even than just something that's like bad, because it's like you're, maybe because you're expecting it to be funny,
Mhm.
and then when it's like,
Especially, it depends on like the person's gaze, right? So I'm, like, if I'm, at church or like I take
Right,
Jesus
right.
seriously. So
Yeah.
like for me, engaging with the work is like, if it's gonna be a joke, then why is it funny?
right.
So
Well, there's another thing about voicing the joke too, because, let's say, I think, Jesus as Tarzan, or, it was potentially funny, but it has to do with, all the other jokes around it too. Like you just keep finding these large and small jokes, like the grinning snake, the fucking dogs, the two-headed bird, and
I
so
don't think
on.
the dogs are having sex. I think that dog is protecting that dog from that snake or something. Like he's kind of
yeah.
protected. That's how my little dog do. She's trying to jump in front of me. I'm gonna protect you.
I've misread this painting ever since it's inception.
Yeah, like that person, that dog is hurt, and that dog's like, I'm gonna protect you.
But the bottom dog is dead.
Yeah,
Look, he's giving up his life.
Yeah, look like you know how they do. They stick with them. and they die.
Well, I think that this has been, the paintings themselves, I think even, I don't know, I think that these new ones, the color in them is even more subtle and beautiful, and the finesse of them is really beautiful, but the kind of like way that the content is handled really has been very consistent throughout. And so I think over, the 2 years that I've been looking at them, I have no choice but to come to accept that some things are the way that they are. And so like, and I don't think that, like, it's like, you go around New York, like, I go and see a lot of shows, not all of those shows are for me. It doesn't really matter, like, I don't think that all paintings are for you, and I do think that there are
audiences for these paintings.
Yes.
Whether I'm the audience for these paintings, is that important enough? Like, I don't always need to be the, I'm not an audience for a lot of things.
That's true.
Yeah.
So.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I do think that this idea, just going back, it does actually, it's the one place, like as we've been having conversations, it's the one thing where I'm like, okay, if the sort of strengths of the characters were toned down, maybe it's not so much that that there's a way in which I'm actually being excluded by the strength of those like positions, or that the joke kind of is a little, it's so strong that I really don't want to go in. But if those things were toned down, it might actually gentle that. I wonder if it could just make that doorway slightly wider.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can just give yourself the permission, right? I mean, he can. And
He
see
can,
what happens
but
without.
whether-
Might not be who he is.
Yeah.
But I want to, Joe,
Cause they do look very committed, so it is like,
Yeah.
no matter what we say, it is kind of like, it's so probably who he is.
right. I mean,
So
your position in here from the beginning, there was, moments of conflict. I was sort of in that position when I was in school at the end. So for me, it was kind of a test of like, how firmly do I really want to be doing this thing I'm doing? Because everyone was telling me not to do it. And so I like, the fool who persists in his folly would become wise, as Blake said. So I just kept doing it. And I think there's something, that I think what you've learned here has been a lot in opposition. Not all of it, but a significant part of it. So I think that's actually worthwhile. There's more than one way to learn. And but I also think that you don't, that there would be a false choice to say either I have to go along with, the idea, these notions that I don't really believe in order to change my work. I think there are ways your work can change and evolve that are perfectly in sync with what you believe. You just, the real polarity to me is holding onto the edge of the pool, the safe place, which is the formula that you've got, or letting go and letting that formula grow and evolve in whatever way.
Would you say that these paintings, because I think the thing about these paintings is that they don't have actual beliefs. I mean, at least the beliefs seem that they are not as important as the sort of time spent in the room with the paintings.
I think they have a sensibility
You
that's
do?
slightly different than belief.
Yeah.
I do.
They have sensibility more than belief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like, and that tension is like, and I think that part of like the pull is that like, maybe I want belief in them.
Yeah.
But they sort of are saying like, well, in a way that they're like,
I'm not trying
they're
to
really
teach.
committed to that sensibility, and so it's difficult to find a space where.
But that, I think you can voice that sensibility in lots of different ways. That's
Right.
And and Joe also, I mean, I think there's something about they're kind of looking for faith, or what would faith be like, or they have different positions in different paintings where they more or less allow themselves to believe in something. The ones that are more ironic or less ironic, or
Well, in a way, that's another way of saying risk, like back to Veronica's crit, to sort of to
yeah.
make something personal that isn't just sort of absorbing, like Walter was saying at the beginning, that there's a sort of a great attention to the detail of the pictorial, like the images and the things from other, but where.
That's a marvelous attention to detail.
Yeah.
Greatest.
What-
Yeah.
It's marvelous. It's like the attention to detail is like
Yeah.
top notch.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, there's a lot there that you can, kind of relax and let it breathe.
All right, 'cause a lot of times people could just like ignorantly not appreciate that detail enough to hold, for these paintings to hold their strength. So that's kind of something you probably could be
Yeah.
aware of. I don't know how to approach it, but just to be aware of. Some people won't. Yeah, appreciate that.
I mean, just on a formal level, in terms of there's what I think of as like,
What's impressive is that
repetitive or operational detail, where it's just like blade of grass. And then there's detail where you've got like intricate kinds of patterns interweaving, like in Van Eyck or something. And that's what, the thing that most interests me is these
No clouds.
these cloud to branch to,
The
the
rainbow.
things between all of that. That, the way that you kind of are able to imagine the meshing together of these different patterns, I think is really cool.
Yeah, no adults is like, they love that. It's like detail in such a small area.
And how you're able to be consistent every time, Joe.
Yeah.
Super
With
impressive.
your hand, every time it's like,
Even the way you playing with light and all these small, like even like on some of the small angels, you still dealing with light and shadow and stuff.
When you were
It's a
talking,
small paintbrush, man.
when you're talking about belief in the work, like, I guess I'm struggling to see where you're seeing like the concept of belief in the work versus like fascination with like the concept of belief.
Well, maybe, I could go with that.
Yeah, I was just curious if there was
The
specific parts
belief
that
thing
made
is,
more in
the belief thing is more from his writing than what
Okay.
Also, these are signifiers of beliefs.
Yeah.
I was just curious if there was specific things that you guys were getting that felt more like the, like, I forget how you phrased it, it was like things that feel like belief in, like, that are beyond signifiers versus like.
That are beyond what?
Belief in the thing that feels like beyond signifiers versus like using this, just them as symbols or things like that. I guess I got confused in this conversation, like what was talking about the writing, what was talking about the paintings.
For me, I think Joe's painting has becoming more and more approachable over time. Partially because like his earlier paintings, like in the first year, there is no clear narrative or moral that has been suggested. But his latest paintings, for example, in that one, you can see like all those humans that have been tortured are painted in the same sort of the same way, and they're like they're almost like clones of each other, so they kind of belong to the same family, and that they're like creatures that are that tortures them, which is like, I don't know, employees of the hell, and up there's like deities, so it is much more easier to actually classify what are the functions of these figures, like how do they work to serve the whole narrative. While in this painting also, because these are all signifiers, so we can sort of make associations between them, so there is a clearer relationship that has been created in both of these paintings. Where his earlier paintings, there is no clear relationships between the figures or animal that he paints, so they sort of just looks like different figures that does not look like each other but belong in the same world. But in here we can see there is like a power structure, there is like punishment, and there is hierarchy. And I feel that makes the whole narrative much more approachable.
Yeah, I was thinking about approachability as well, because I feel like these paintings have a lot to do with knowledge, and then you're going through a lot of effort to research different religions, and like it's all based on like all the knowledge that's available in the contemporary world, like it's so accessible. But like for me, who doesn't know a lot about any particular religion, like religion is becoming obsolete, like something that's not of interest in the contemporary world as we move forward. And then these paintings being so adamant about being about religion, like that makes some sort of like sense in contemporary world, like it's moving away, but then it's like rejecting that progress. And then I feel like I was thinking about like what Professor Fox said about the audience, like maybe a historian would be able to tell a lot about one painting or this painting, like they maybe know more about than a regular person does. But then if you wanted to look up, if you want to search, if you want to know any answer from AI, you need to know how to ask the question, right? You need to know what to ask in order to get that answer. Like, I find that interesting. There's this painting called Netherlandish Proverbs, and it's from the 1500s. It's this huge painting with 126 literal representations of Dutch proverbs, like Flemish proverbs, and I feel like that the audience for that painting is like the people who know that language, or the people who know Flemish, and like, you know, it's like contained, like the knowledge of that painting is contained within that context. But then the context in your paintings are like, it's just so excessive, and like that, it relates me to the excessiveness of contemporary, like, and the excessiveness of your image making and your mark making.
Well, there's something about the, you know, you probably know that painting, don't you, Joe? The one, the Flemish painting of the Proverbs? Don't look it up right now. But I want to go back to what Sam and Fox were talking about the belief, because I got confused in there. I mean, what I was talking about before was belief in religions, not belief in the paintings. So I thought what I meant was that Joe seems to, in different paintings, occupy slightly different positions in relation. Sometimes they seem to be like kind of wish fulfillment fantasies. If I believed in religion, it would be like this. And sometimes they seem to be just like, you know, this stuff is incredibly riveting, but I can't go there. I mean, for me, just for that reason, my misreading of this, which was all on me, really undermined my reading of this painting in general, because I always thought the dogs were having sex here. And now that, you know, well, what...
It's the facial expression.
Hmm?
It's the facial expression.
Yeah, that he's protecting Jesus from the snake. That's like a heroic act. Instead of like an in-your-face dude, you know, that's like a heroic act. It makes it much more earnest. You know, the reading of the painting much more earnest.
But his paintings always had that. Like the one where they were holding like a gun, and the other one was holding like
Right.
like a phallic imagery. Like, there's always like this innuendo like tricks you.
Yeah.
There's excessive context, and then it's like I think about finding Waldo. It's like I know what I'm doing with those things. I know what I'm doing there. I have to find Waldo, but I don't know what to do with these paintings.
But
It
Sam,
just relates me to the excessiveness.
well, one last thing. Sam, what did you mean about believing in the paintings?
Like, I guess I was confused on like where the concept of, like, obviously there's like religious symbols in the thing, but the conversation was being grounded in the concept of belief, and so I was wondering where in the paintings that was being like talked about versus if it was only being talked about in the writing. Because like, I guess I always have the thing of like trying to refine like what we're talking about in the thing we're talking about, so I was confused as to where we were pulling that
I see.
from, if that makes sense.
I see. Okay.